everyone, and again, welcome to today's webinar, Move It or Lose It, How a Daily Movement Practice Can Change Your Life. We are grateful you have taken time to join us, and my name is Alexandra Sislowski, and I'll be your moderator. I've been a member of Pascoe Canada's sales department team for over 2 years, and I'm very excited to be hosting today's session. Pascoe Canada is the Canadian subsidiary of Pascoe headquartered in Gießen, Germany, which is a third-generation family-run manufacturer of natural healthcare products. Pascoe Canada is dedicated to bringing our consumers, retail partners, and medical community premium natural healthcare products with over 125 years of history. Our products are made in Germany and are carefully harvested by hand from locally sourced natural ingredients. We only use high quality raw materials, and when possible, the medicinal plants are cultivated under organic conditions. Pascoe's portfolio in Canada includes over 70 products that are herbal, homeopathic, and dietary supplements. Today's webinar is Move It or Lose It, How a Daily Movement Practice Can Change Your Life, presented by Coach Gaétan Boutin, an elite high performance coach and functional movement specialist. We are so thrilled to have you join us, Coach Gaétan, and share your expertise on the subject matter. Without further delay, I'd like to welcome our presenter, Coach Gaétan, and turn the time over to you.
Amazing. Thank you, Alex. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm sure it's pretty clear. So I'm going to turn on camera here. All right. So I want everyone to see me as well as hear me. I'm really big on that. You can see me in person so we can kind of get this thing going. All right. So here's how we're going to go through. We're going to break down a little bit of who I am. We won't spend much time on that. We're going to talk about human movement evolution and de-evolution, as I call it. We're going to talk about the inactivity pandemic. That will be fun. The human anti-fragile effect, benefits of movement, the most important movement of all. Hopefully you guys will be interested in that. And I'm going to go through some of my top non-negotiable, as I call them, daily movements. So it's going to be fun. We're really excited to be here. Before we get started, I want to just send a shout out and a thank you to Pascoe. They've been an amazing company. I've been using their product with myself and my athletes for many, many, many years. And I've been proud to use their products and recommend them with my people. It's never been a business deal. It's always been because I really believe in them and their quality, and they're made by amazing people. So really thanks to Pascoe for getting this going. All right. Okay, just got to click through here to the next slide. All right, so really quick, who am I? Well, as Alex introduced me, I am a human performance coach. So basically what that means is I help people become the best version of themselves. I specialize in athletes, but I don't only work with athletes. I work with all kinds of people. I end up working with a lot of the parents of the athletes that I work with, the grandparents of the athletes that I work with. It doesn't matter the age or the specialty. I help all kinds of people. So trained classically as a kinesiologist, which basically just means I'm a movement specialist. I know how people move, and I'm really big on that. I'm a strength conditioning coach for athletes. I'm a sports nutrition expert as well. I'm a high performance mindset coach, which is really, really important for helping people to make changes and to help them transform and improve their behaviors. I'm the co-founder of a company called Strong Athlete. Okay, so Strong Athlete, our mission is to help athletes and clients in an authentic, genuine way realize their true performance potential by providing world-class information and coaching on performance, mindset, strength and conditioning, sport-specific training, holistic nutrition, supplementation, and injury prevention. That's a whole mouthful, but essentially what that means is we take a holistic, integrated approach to helping people. We don't just see things through one lens, we see things through multiple lenses, because if you want to make a change in your life physically, from a mindset standpoint, from a nutrition standpoint, you have to see things how they work together and not just under a microscope and just pull out this one thing. So there's a lot of specialists in this day and age that will take that one thing and just work on it with you. I actually like to call myself a generalist because I want to see you as a whole, because when you see as a whole, you can start to pick apart those opportunities for you to make improvements. Very, very important. Okay, this is one of my favorite little slides. This is something I've been using and speaking about for many years when I've given a lot of presentations, and it's this idea that any fool can make something complicated. It takes genius to make it simple. So a lot of things I'm going to talk about today sound and seem very, very simple. And I've taken very advanced concepts in all of my presentations and I simplify them. It doesn't have to be complicated. People think that movement, people think that performance, people think that managing injuries or nutrition has to be all complicated, but it's actually very simple if you just break it down to those simple things. So I preface that a lot of things we're going to talk about are going to sound simple, but they're all rooted in very deep scientific principles. Okay, here's kind of a little image of, to give you an idea of what I do as a movement specialist, because today we're going to talk about movement. So I basically take a systematic approach to help clients, athletes, move better. So this is a fun little diagram of one of my clients. This is actually the mom of a golf athlete that I work with. And you can see just as an example of a device that I use called Coach's Eye, and I'll break down movement patterns and I'll show clients where they're moving well and where they're moving poorly. Okay, so most injuries or issues happen from poor movement. People think, well, just because I'm moving, I'm going to the gym, for example, then I'm going to feel better and look better and all these great things. But in many cases, it's creating the opposite effect and it could be creating all sorts of issues. So it's important to have an expert around you or someone you have access to that can help guide you and give you the right information, because people forget that moving is a skill. Training, exercising, these are all skills. You're not just born and you know how to do that. It's like riding a bike, riding a skateboard. These are things that you learn through technical advice. So don't undermine the importance or the value or the details of moving. Okay, this is like my favorite image. It's human evolution, as we've all seen, from basically ape to man. And then now what we see is this de-evolution of going back down and sitting at a desk, sitting at a computer. This is so true, and it could not be further from the truth. And most people that I work with are sedentary, meaning they sit, and we're going to talk a lot about that today, the majority of the day. Ask yourself, how often are you sitting? Watch your behaviors. I'm a huge observer of people, not in a weird way, but like I love watching people. I love watching behaviors. So like, for example, you'll see someone who will get out of a car that they've just been sitting in. They'll walk into a place like a facility, maybe it's an office, whatever. And the first thing they do is they look for somewhere to sit down. Or you go to the restaurant and you're waiting for your table. What do? You need somewhere to sit down before you go sit at your table. These behaviors are so programmed and so like unconscious that they're affecting your health and your well-being, and we don't even know it. So if anything, as humans, I think we're regressing, we're going backwards, and it could be very dangerous for the longevity and the health of our future. Okay, we're gonna do a little poll. We're gonna get this set up, so just give us a second here. You guys are gonna go on and you're gonna answer the poll. So the poll is, have you ever experienced muscle or joint pain or injury? So click your answer and we'll keep this moving. Okay, so 83% have experienced one of those at least. and 17% have never experienced any muscle or joint pain or injury. Okay, I would love to meet the 17% that have never experienced any one of those things. That would be really interesting. So I'm huge on case studies. I'm huge on seeing things. The reality is, at some point, you're going to experience one of those things. It's inevitable. We always say there's two types of people: those who have experienced one of those three, and those who are going to experience one of those things. Those three. So what we use movement for is we use movement to reduce the risk of those things, and also, since the risk cannot be fully reduced, we improve the ability to recover from a pain, from an injury, from all of these things. So the more you move, the better you are at recovering, which is very, very important. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, the inactivity pandemic. So right now, as we all know, we're going through a bit of a pandemic with the COVID situation, and it's brought a lot of people home. It's forced a lot of people to stay in their homes a lot more, which unfortunately means a lot of people are sitting probably more than they actually were before, because they're not getting up to move places. They're sitting a lot more. Hopefully, people are taking advantage of this time and they're going out for walks, they're stretching their legs, they're getting outside more, they're getting something we call vitamin N, which is basically vitamin nature, is one of my biggest prescriptions. So like really, I believe that inactivity is a global disease, that it is affecting the health and well-being of more people today than any other issue. I think it's the root cause of so many other health issues. Like, you might have a bad diet and you're getting heart disease or diabetes or obesity or these types of things, but research shows that if you plan to move and you create a regular movement practice, the likelihood of you eating better and feeling better, of all those things, is much higher. So again, like I said in the beginning, when I work with people, I take this holistic approach. It's not just one thing, like, oh, just eat better. Well, that's only going to take you so far. It's move more, eat better, sleep better. All of these things start to build momentum, and you start to create these lifestyle habits. They're going to improve everything for you. A little stat there: the World Health Organization ranks inactivity, sitting too much, as the 4th biggest preventable killer globally, which is pretty crazy, right? Like, something as simple as that. All right, let's move on to the next slide. All right, okay. The destruction of inactivity. So you kind of see this whole process here. There's a lot of different things here. Again, I'm going to keep saying a lot of the same things because I think it's very important. It's this holistic concept of your mental health is affected by your physical health. So today's workshop is called Move It or Lose It. But what are you really going to lose? Well, yeah, you're going to lose your physical capabilities, but you're also going to lose and be affected in your mental health. Your mental health will depreciate. And that is a huge, huge component. With this whole pandemic thing going on, everyone's sitting at home and stuck at home, mental health has become one of the biggest issues and concerns going forward. We like to socialize, we're social creatures, we like to interact and get out, and when we're not doing those things, it can dramatically affect our mental health. So again, we're talking about movement, but there's a huge correlation between movement and mental health. So things like osteoporosis, which we'll talk a little bit more about, a better example in a little bit, tendonitis, which is basically pain at the end of your tendons, which seems like pain in your joints, muscle atrophy, which is basically means you lose muscle mass. So the less active you are, you will lose muscle mass. And muscle mass is one of the key indicators of long-term health. So the more muscle mass you have, the longer you're going to retain your sense of independence and health. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't have to be like this huge bodybuilder like Arnold Schwarzenegger or The Rock or someone like that. Doesn't have to be like that. it's something that might not be very visual, but you have some muscle density from moving, maybe a little bit of resistance training. That's going to extend your health for many, many years to come. The older people that I work with, when they come in, whenever anyone comes in, I'm always like, what is your goal? What are we going to do? What do you want me to do with you and help you to do? And for the older people, like 99% of the time, they don't know, they're not sure. They're like, well, I'm not playing a sport. I'm not trying to make it to the NHL or the NFL or whatever that is. But I'm like, don't you want to play with your kids for longer? Don't you want to play with your grandkids and all, maybe even great grandkids? Don't you want to be able to pick them up and interact with them? Absolutely. So we want to extend your longevity, extend the quality of your life, and muscle growth or muscle maintenance is so important for that. We have joint pain, which is kind of like tendonitis. Most people, it's hard to tell between the two, which is a huge issue for a lot of people. Arthritis as well, joint swelling. We have weight gain, and weight gain comes back and affects all of those other things, right? If you have joint pain, tendonitis, arthritis, weight gain is going to aggravate those things. The more weight you have on those joints that they don't like to take those loads, the more issues you're going to have. Circulation diseases is huge. Basically, you could basically imagine a river that stopped flowing. What happens to that river? Starts to get all murky, and it's like bacteria and stuff starts to sit on the top of the water because it doesn't move. Your blood is very similar. So when you move, we want to be able to move your blood. And then the big one, back pain, which is one of the most debilitating things that people can experience. If you've ever had a back issue, you can relate. It basically stops everything. It almost feels like a mini paralysis of like you can't do anything or do anything comfortably. So that's something we really want to avoid. Okay, the desk zombie, as I call it. This is the biggest problem that I see with people today. Even people that go and they work out, they strength train, they go to a facility. Imagine like you have 24 hours in a day and you go and you exercise, we'll call it, for 1 hour. That's only 1 hour. So then you have the rest of the 23 hours in a day. Of course, you're going to sleep. Most people sleep around 6 to 7 hours if they're lucky. So then you have the rest of those hours where you're probably sitting a lot. It'd be interesting. I challenge people who are listening today, to do a log of how long they're sitting, time it in the day. See how long you're sitting for all day. And that includes the couch, that includes the kitchen table, that includes the car, that includes the office, that includes lounging, that includes all those things. It'd be interesting for yourself, because you might be like, oh, I don't sit that much. Do a log and then see how often you sit. So the death zombie experiences all kinds of issues, right? Which is brain fog, again, mental health, neck pain. We see these tight rounded shoulders, compromised diaphragm. If anyone knows what the diaphragm is a key muscle that helps with breathing, okay? And most people that first come through my doors, they don't know what a diaphragm is and they don't know how to use it. And if you don't know how to use your diaphragm, which is an important part of breathing, you don't breathe right. Sounds funny, but most people don't know how to breathe. And that's actually a process that I take people through when I work with them, teaching you how to breathe. You have increased risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, muscle degeneration or atrophy, which we were just talking about, pelvic floor dysfunction, which is very important, especially for females if you want to get pregnant or you had a baby. That's major, major important. Now some big ones is shortened hip flexors. If you can see the image, the hip flexor is, if you think of it, you find your hip bone, put your fingers on your hip bones and go just inside about 1 inch. That's where hip flexors start, and they go all the way down into like your leg. So those get short and they get tight. And if you can see the diagram where it says low back pain, which is basically the lower part of the spine, you can see a muscle kind of coming off of that image. That's also part of your hip flexor. So there's kind of two parts of that hip flexor. And what happens is when you've been sitting a lot and you go to stand up, those hip flexors are tight. It's going to rotate your hips and it's going to pull on your back. So that's how you get back pain. Most back pain people that I deal with, it's basically from tight hip flexors. and that's it. Inactive glute muscles, your glute is your butt, basically your bum muscles. If you saw the image that I showed in the beginning, the evolution where we start to stand up as humans, the reason why we can stand is because we have developed glute muscles. However, most people don't stand enough anymore, so their glute muscles are getting weaker, so it's affecting their posture and it's causing them to kind of slouch more. So that's something I deal with a lot in the training center. And then joint pain from lack of movement, and then back pain. It always goes back to back pain. I think that's one of the biggest things that people deal with. All right, so don't be a desk zombie for all you desk zombies out there that are stuck in your jobs. Okay, the human anti-fragile effect. This is a really, really interesting concept that I really wanted to share with all of you today, because I think if you understand it, you can apply it to your life and you can get something out of it. So this concept of Nassim Taleb has this cool book called Anti-Fragile, if you ever want to check it out. And it's this idea of complex systems are weakened, even killed, when deprived of stressors. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that the human body works off of stress, meaning if you never stress it, now let me be very clear, when I'm saying stress right now, I'm not talking about mental stress, I'm talking about physical stress. Okay, so imagine if you never walked, you never put weight on your legs, you never stood up. How strong are your legs going to be? How much bone density are you going to have in your body? A good example of this is astronauts. So one of the challenges that the space program always had was when you send astronauts into space, there's no gravity, right? It's a zero gravity effect. So they're not bearing the weight of their body. So what happens when they come back is they've lost a ton of muscle and they've started to generate osteoporosis, which I said before, I'll come back and talk to you. They're losing bone mass and they're losing muscle mass because the body works under a stress system. The more you stress it, the more it's going to adapt and be better for you. So you might go and lift weights, for example, and you feel sore and you're like, well, why am I doing this? It's causing me to be sore. That can't be a good thing. Well, the more you do it, the more your body's going to adapt and it's going to basically build, in this case, more muscle, or it's going to make the bones stronger to handle the loads that you're giving it. So this is very, very, very important. The more you load your body, the better it's going to be and the better it's going to respond. And the less you load your body sitting all the time, the weaker your body's going to get, the weaker your circulation system is going to get. Again, muscle, bones, nervous system. Remember, the body is lazy. It doesn't want to grow or use more energy. It wants to just do the bare minimum. So you have to force it by challenging it regularly to develop and grow. So that is like, if you take one thing away from this, I want you to understand that concept so that you can push forward and move forward with your health. Okay, let's see. Okay, we're gonna do another poll. We're gonna bring it up on the screen. So take a second here. So do you have a daily scheduled movement practice? Yes or no? This should be fun. I want to see what we get. So remember, I scheduled, not random. Okay, just give us 1 sec here. We're just tallying up the totals. All right, so 38% have a daily movement schedule practice, and 63% do not have a daily scheduled movement practice. Okay, well, you know what that tells me? There's possibility here for 63% of you that are watching or listening to this right now. There's opportunity for you to develop something that's going to make a big difference. Okay, I'm a big believer in if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And people always like to make the excuse of, I don't have enough time. Well, it's because you don't make time. Time and what you do with your time tells me where your priorities are. We can close the poll now. It tells me where your priorities are. If you don't take it as a priority, then you're not going to get nothing out of it. If you give me like the when I have time, I'll do it, you're never going to do it because it's not important enough to you. You have to start to decide, is this important to you? So one thing to be clear on, all movements are, and all behaviors of movement are value-based propositions. So I would say if it's important, it'll get done. So if you decide it's important enough to schedule it, make time for it every day, it doesn't have to be 2 hours, an hour, 20 minutes is a great start. That is what I suggest, but you need to declare it. You need to share it, as I say. So declare it and then share it, meaning I'm going to do this. I'm going to commit to whatever 20 minutes plus a day. I'm going to tell someone, I'm going to tell that person, hey, make me accountable for this too. Whenever you see me, ask me, how's that scheduled movement practice doing for you? And just make yourself on the hook, because I'm telling you, you're going to get a lot out of that. Okay, benefits of movement, real quick. Healthy spine and posture. That's my first thing. And that's your life force. When your spine is healthy, then your posture is healthy, your energy is positive. Just like if you stand up straight, good posture, and you take a nice big breath, you'll feel better. Like there's no way around that. Like that is your life force. That's going to help drive you. That's going to increase your circulation. It's going to improve your mood, your mental clarity, your focus. It's going to improve your bone and joint health. Again, we talked about muscle quality, muscle density, improve mobility. It's going to reduce risk of injury. And if you do get injured, like I mentioned before, it's going to help you to recover better from those injuries. And it's going to basically give you pain-free living. So all of those things, if that's not how you want to live, then I don't know what to tell you, because those things excite me just reading them on the slide. Okay. All right, let's go back here. The most important movement of all is walking. Crazy, right? You don't need a gym. You don't need weights. You don't need any machines. You don't need any bands. You don't need anything to walk. It is the most important movement. If you said, Coach, I only have time to do one thing, what would that be? I'd be like, walk. Just go for a walk. The photo here is one of my lovely athletes. That's Scarlett Delgado. She's a nationally ranked boxer and a future WWE superstar. So keep your eyes open for her. Amazing girl. So she was cool enough to come and do some photos for this. Walking improves everything. And we talked about mental health. Motion improves emotion. So if you're ever having a bad day, go for a walk. If you're ever stressed, go for a walk. If you're ever mad, go for a walk. Any one of those things will start to reset you and clear you. Notice in the photo, she has her left leg behind her body. That's something we call extension. So this is what people don't get enough of in their daily life, is leg, or we call it hip extension, which basically means one leg going behind the body. This is stretching out. We talked about your hip flexors a little bit. If you sit too much, your hip flexors, which is basically the front of your legs up into your hip bone, gets tight, and you lose that ability to extend your leg. And that helps. That if you don't have that, it's going to affect your low back. And when your low back's messed up, your upper back's messed up, your neck is messed up, everything, it's a whole chain that's connected. So walking, people, vitamin N, get out in nature, walk, and walk like you mean it. I would say walk like you're going somewhere. Like the casual walk is fine, but walk with a little bit of purpose so that you challenge your body a little bit and get those muscles elongated and get them moving. Good, walking, I'm all about it. Okay, let's go through some basic non-negotiable daily movements that I just want to show you guys. Of course, they're going to require more homework on your part. You're going to want to look into these things a little more. This is being recorded, so you guys can always go back and watch this and listen to this. And if you ever need to get a hold of me, we'll leave some contact information for me. You can always find me. I'm not hard to find. This is one of my favorite movements. It's the hinge, we call it, or the deadlift position if you have weights. So as you can see, Scarlett starts standing, and all she does is bend at her hip. Now, the crazy thing is this looks like the simplest movement of all the movements, and yet for most people, it's the most complex. You'd be shocked at how many people cannot just do this basic movement properly. Give it a try yourself, and you might think you're doing it, but if you feel any stress in your lower back, you're doing it wrong. So people are like, well, I'm not going to go to the gym and deadlift because I'm going to hurt my back. Well, if you have no guidance or proper coaching, you will hurt your back because it's very technical. But this, if after walking, if you told me I can only do one movement other than walking, this would be it, because this strengthens what we call your posterior chain, everything from the back of your heel to the back of your neck. If you put some weights or resistance, and we can do it with bands, we can do it with dumbbells, barbells, medicine balls, a box full of something, like it doesn't matter. We can find ways to be creative, but this is my favorite movement. Now, I'm going to give you this funny little thing next. Skip through here. Okay, so the dangers of safe movement. That sounds funny, right? Dangers of safe movements. We've always been taught if you want to pick something up, you could see Scarlett picking up as a squat position. Let's say she's going to pick up a box or something. That's the safe way to pick things up, as we've all been trained for our whole lives. Then you see her on the other side where she's bending over the hinge style position. That's a no-no, right? That's how you're going to hurt your back. Well, here's the problem. If you never get into that hinge position, you're never getting strong in the back of your legs, your glutes, which is the back of your hips or your butt, your lower back, your upper back. You're never strengthening that. So as much as you're trying to protect yourself with this safe pickup and you're avoiding that other position, you're actually doing yourself a lot of harm long term. So something very important for you to consider, okay? Again, you need proper coaching and proper guidance to make sure you get in the right position. Okay, squat, pretty obvious. Don't need too much explanation here. The squat is a great movement to get down. She is obviously very flexible and very mobile, so she can get right down. Most people can't do that, and that's okay. But a little challenge you can do is a squat sit. So like every day, try to sit in that bottom position for 5 minutes. You might not be able to do 5 minutes straight, but just start with like 30 seconds, 20 seconds. Ideally, keep your heels down. If you can't keep your heels down, you can put a little elevation under your heel, like a book. Make sure they're the same size, 2 books or something, just to prop up your heel, just to get down. You would think that that position would be unhealthy for the knees because the knees are all the way folded, but that's actually a very healthy position for your knees, for your joints, stretches you out. So this is another non-negotiable daily movement, which I would recommend, squatting. Hinge first though. If you want to progress, if the squat is way too easier for you, this is just called a split squat. So it's a progression. As you can see, she's got one leg in front of the other, and she's basically just going straight down and straight up. Okay, so if you find the squat is way too easy for you and you want to be a little more advanced, try the split squat. Okay, one thing for you to understand is, and I won't get too technical on this basically for the sake of time, we have multiple planes of movement that our body goes in, okay? And I'll keep it very simple. As I said in the beginning, it's gonna be very simple. You can go forwards or backwards, you can go side to side, or you can rotate, okay? So those are like just three very basic things, forward, backwards. So picture walking forward or walking backwards. You can raise your arms to your side and put them back down. You can side bend, or you can twist. You can turn your body. So if you notice as we go through the rest of these, there's a little bit of all of those movements, because I like to incorporate all of what I call the different planes of movement. So while I'm training a high level athlete, every one of their high performance training sessions includes a little bit of every movement plane, just so you know. If I have an older person I'm working with, I still incorporate every plane of movement in their time with me that I work with them. Obviously, the intensity is going to be very different, the volume, but the concept is very similar because I want you to have access to all of those movements. Excuse me. So just very simple, torso twist. Getting all choked up, I'm so excited here. Okay, arm flies. So you notice in the desk zombie, you had people like shoulders down or what we call the ugly texting flamingo neck. That's one of my favorite quotes. That's on your cell phone with your head down and your shoulders forward, creating very bad posture and tightness on your chest. So we can open that up with flies, and these can be very dynamic. You can go fairly quick once you get comfortable, but just getting that range of motion, okay? So that's another plane of movement. This is called the cat-cow. You might have seen this if anyone's ever done yoga, commonly used in yoga. And this is just moving the spine, basically the whole spine through different ranges of motion. So you basically go as high as you can on your back, and then you sink it down low, okay? So it's up and down is basically that objective, okay? Again, moving your spine in many different ways. Bird dog, very simple, yet very effective. I talked to you before about extension of the hip is what I want when I was talking about walking. So this is a great way to use a hip extension. As you can see, her left leg in the end position is straight out, her knee is straight, her toes are pointing down, and her back is straight, okay? This is a slow, controlled motion. It's not quick. You see people doing this sometimes, and it kills me every time. They're just kind of rushing through it. That's not getting the point. It should be controlled, get into that end position, hold it, get stable, and then switch. Very controlled, very core activating, glute activating, hamstring. You can activate basically the whole body by doing this very simple drill. And every high level athlete that I work with when they come in, this is part of their warm up. And almost every older person I work with, this will be part of the warm up, as long as they can get down onto their hands and knees safely and comfortably. Okay, this is a Y raise. So again, we talked about the ugly texting flamingo neck or the desk zombie where you're hunched over. Want to develop a little bit of strength in the back of your shoulders. So this is basically just a Y raise. You're just coming up. Notice how she's bent over, and that just helps to offer a little bit of resistance from your arms. Pretty simple movement, but very effective. If you're not comfortable, if you feel like you have back strain while doing this, you can sit on a bench or a chair and then lean forward and do it, or you can sit up against the wall and do it. But very, very effective exercise, non-negotiable. And in addition to the Y raise is the T raise. So the only difference is like you'll be in this Y position or you'll be in this T position. So just changing the angle a little bit, but both of those are very effective and very easy. Again, you don't need any weights to do these. You don't need any equipment. Side bends, we talked about the different planes of movement. Just opening up your obliques, open up the side of your hips. Kind of fun to do. You can play some music while you're doing these things, but very, very fun and very effective. And then the last non-negotiable daily movement is what we call a lunge stretch. If you're going to do any stretch, this is the stretch I recommend because it works on what we talked about initially, the hip flexors. Okay, so you can see how she's got her back knee down and she's basically pushing, in this case, her right leg is forward, her left leg is back. She's pushing her left hip bone into the ground. And you're going to get a stretch on the front of the left leg and a little bit above the hip. You're going to get a little bit of a stretch there. So in terms of holding, you can hold these for 30 seconds. Ideally, you want to hold it up for up to a minute if you're comfortable. Don't hold your breath. Focus on breathing. Very, very important movements for you to do, okay? So with all of those things, you can make like a little mini circuit, and you could do like anywhere from 5 to 10 reps of every one of those movements. You just kind of do them back to back to back, and you feel comfortable, you can go back and repeat it like for 1 or 2 or 3 rounds, whatever you're comfortable with. If you do that every day, I'm telling you, you're gonna feel amazing, and you don't even need any weights, okay? All right. So dealing with pain, inflammation, and injury, like when we did the survey, the poll at the beginning, there was a whole bunch of people that had never experienced any pain or injury inflammation. You will at some point if you have not. And when those happen, the movement is going to help you to be able to recover better. However, there are many different things you can do. Your nutrition is going to affect how well you recover. It's just a matter of time, so we want to make sure that you're always prepared. So with my athletes, I have been using lymph dowel drops. Actually got one right here. I actually use it almost daily. There's many different reasons why people use it, and I can't speak on behalf of the company, but I'm speaking on behalf of my own experiences. We use this as an anti-inflammatory for my athletes who have any injuries or they're dealing with any excessive training. So if they have like a really tournament style weekend and their body's going to be in an inflammatory state a lot because they're not getting a lot of rest, I use this product to help manage their inflammation. If they have any injuries, whether they're acute or chronic, acute means like someone hit them or they fell and it caused like some issues, I would have them take this product. If they're going in for surgery, again, I'm not speaking on behalf of the company, once the doctor has cleared them, I have had them use this product to help the recovery process. So all of my athletes pretty much always have one of these bottles kicking around in their house or in their bag. And whenever something happens, I'm always like, start taking the drops. I've also used it personally for digestive things. If you get like inflammation from digestion, I have personally had success with that, but I can't, claim that. That's basically what I use it for. But I've used these products for many, many, many years, and I'm a huge fan and a huge believer in them. And then there's also the cream. Let's see if we can get to the next slide. Yeah, the cream is awesome if you have any joint issues or swelling or inflammation. Again, if you have a contusion like a bruise and even like a cut, it's amazing for healing. So if you have any bruising or cuts or any localized inflammation, then the cream is amazing. We always have that down. When I do any hands-on manual labor or manual treatment with any of my clients or my athletes, I'll use the cream just to help get in there to help basically reduce the swelling. So great products. I've used them for many, many years. Huge fan. So I'm just happy to be able to share that with you and share my experiences using those products. So if you want to connect with me, really simple. You can find me at strong-athlete.com is our website, at strongathlete on Instagram. Pretty easy to find me. I'm not hard to find. Not many people have my name and then have it with Strong Athlete joined together. So if there's anything you need, I do all kinds of custom performance stuff. Again, elite world-class athletes, but I also work with non-athletes. As long as people are serious about making an improvement, improving their health, their wellness, then I help them as much as I can. So if you ever have any issues or any questions, feel free to reach out. All right. So we're going to kick off the Q&A. Alex is going to come back on.
Yes, thank you so much. Coach Gaétan, thank you for sharing your expertise. I think I sat up a little straighter during your.
I think everyone did, right?
And I'm planning on going for a walk now that the rain's cleared up. So thank you. Again, I hope everyone all found the presentation as educational and informative as I did. We would like to start the question and answer session now. I already see we have a few. If you have any questions for Coach Gaétan and would like to join our discussion, please type them into the question box. So I have a question here from Debbie. She asks, squatting and split squats for me is very difficult due to 3 knee surgeries, original injury, now playing basketball, and now waiting for a knee replacement. Is there something I can do to replace the squat?
Excellent question. So what I would do, and let me preface before I answer any questions today, everything is a case-by-case basis. And I always answer with it depends when I work with someone at first, because I have to see you and assess you properly. So I just want to like preface that. So it's not a blanket answer, but based on your situation, what I would start looking at would be something we call a box squat as an alternative for you. So let me be very clear, there's something called a squat 2 box, which most people do, which isn't very effective at all. And then there's a box squat. So a squat to box would basically be you do a regular squat and you basically just touch the box or the bench and you go back up. No effect to that other than you want to see how to manage the depth. I don't ever do those in my training center. But a box squat, the difference would be you would sit back onto the box, which basically means your knee would not be angled forward over your foot. So your shin angle would be what we call more vertical or perpendicular to the floor. If you could see, I'm kind of drawing it. I don't know if you can see, hopefully you can see that. So when you box squat, you can sit back on the box and take away some of the stress on the knee and put more emphasis on the hip. So that's something I would look into first. If you're looking at possibly need a knee replacement, I would recommend lymphedaural drops just to help with the inflammation for sure, which I've done many times. I would work on strengthening your hamstrings, so leg curls, the hinge, which I went to in the beginning, still the #1 movement. I would focus on hinging, hamstrings, glutes, and then box squat. So those are some things that I would consider if you're having those long-term knee issues.
Amazing. So I have a question from Ryan here. Would you
Yep.
recommend taking lymphedaural drops every day for prevention or only at the onset of symptoms?
So it depends on the situation. For a while, I took it every day from a stomach inflammation prevention point of view. If you're having, you know that you're going to have like a big training session or an event, like Alex was at my training facility a little while ago, and we had one of my triathletes there, and they do triathlons. So leading up to their triathlon, like for like 2 weeks before, I have them taking lymphedaural like every day as a preventative leading up to help prepare, and then for a couple weeks afterwards. So it's kind of what we call a both and, which is a weird term I use all the time, which means I do use it as prevention, and then I also use it when symptoms come on. So it depends on the situation or the case, but it could be either or. Hopefully that answers the question.
Amazing. Okay, so here's a question from Haley. Do you recommend working out even if you have delayed onset muscle soreness?
Okay, this is huge. I actually got off the phone with one of my athletes this morning who I haven't seen him obviously in a couple months, and I had to remind him of something. So DOMS, as you just said, delayed onset muscle soreness, is inflammation generally and muscle breakdown. So again, let me preface with I have to understand more details of your specific scenario, but my general answer is the best way to deal with soreness is to move. Okay, so soreness is often caused by inflammation, which is why I like lymphedaural, helps with inflammation, but there's no mechanical system that will clear your body of inflammation on its own. The best way to clear swelling or inflammation, which usually causes pain or soreness, is movement, because the muscles create what we call a pump, which essentially squeezes those areas and helps to push out inflammation. So my answer would be, if you have DOMS or delayed onset muscle soreness, the quickest way to get over that is to start moving again. However, let me be very clear. Let's say you had a heavy or an intense lower body training session on Monday and you're really sore on Tuesday. I would not go in and do another intense lower body session on the Tuesday. I would space those out, but I might have an athlete, if let's say they did a lower body on the Monday and they need to skate or run on whatever the Thursday, I would have them come in and do some work. Maybe it's a cycling or spin bike, a little less intense, but get their body moving as quickly as possible to help clear that soreness. Hopefully that answers your question.
Perfect. I do have a question here from Sahar. She
Yep.
said, first off, thanks for the amazing presentation. And what is the best daily exercise to do while having a broken toe?
Walking. No, seriously, like if your toe is broken, I'm assuming you have maybe an air boot. If you don't, that's fine too. But if you can't walk, cycle. If you have a bicycle, cycle. That's the #1 thing that I recommend you do. And to be clear, if you have a broken toe, if you go back to the anti-fragile effect that I spoke about in this conversation, one of the most important things that we recommend with bones, so if it's broken bone, if you have a broken toe, is to put pressure on it, because the bone is going to heal in response to the pressure that you put on it. And let me be very clear. You haven't broken toe. I'm not saying going out and do sprints and do lateral cuts and all this aggressive stuff. Of course not. You have to take it very slow. But I promise you, the more you slowly start to increase progression on it, the better it's going to heal, the faster it's going to heal, and the stronger it's going to be long term. So again, if you can't walk, if like the pain is so bad, cycle is what I recommend, but I would get walking on it basically as soon as you can.
I have a question here from Corey. How do
Yeah.
you know when you are overtraining? Is fatigue a key symptom?
Okay, so here's my favorite answer to that question. So I have the other co-founder of Strong Athlete, our company is Coach PK, and this is one of our favorite quotes of all time. There's no such thing as overtraining. There's only under recovering. So let me say that again. There's no such thing as overtraining. There's only under recovering. So what the first thing I would focus on is look at your recovery before you look at your training. Because I guarantee you, if you're feeling fatigue and feeling these kind of symptoms, you're not recovering, doing all the stuff you could recover. The first place I would look at is your sleep. I would come back on here and do a whole presentation on recovery and sleep, because that's another specialty that I talk about. Because if you're not sleeping well, you're not getting those hormone replenishment, you're not clearing your brain of toxins, you're not replenished enough to go back and perform. Okay, you're not eating enough food probably, you're not getting enough nutrition or nutrients in your food, you're not drinking enough water. All of these things are variables that are going to affect your fatigue. So that is my first answer to that question. And then in terms of specific overtraining, you have to manage the progression of your current state or status. Okay, so things that I see, and I don't want to call anyone out, but I'm going to call out CrossFit, for example. They've brought me lots of injured athletes over the years that I've had to fix, so I thank them for that. But there's this concept of what we call chasing fatigue. If you're going to a gym or a training center just to chase fatigue and go as hard as you can all the time, that is not sustainable. And 9 times out of 10, your body's not even in a place for you to go at that pace yet. But everyone's egging you on and cheering you and yelling, yeah, get it. Like, yeah, that's just really stupid for your body. So I know I'm giving a long answer, but this is a very important question. You have to manage where you're currently at and progress intelligently, and then focus on your recovery. So those are like the big things. So that's my answer to that question.
Perfect. So I have one question here from Patrick.
Yeah.
Can you take lymphedrol drops and cream together, and is there a benefit in doing so?
Absolutely. I have used both of them together for many years. The times what I would use the cream is if it's a very superficial, as we would call it, or an issue that's close to the surface. So if you basically got a bruise on your arm, you got contusion, you got hit, I would use the cream where it's something visual or local, or like a specific joint if you're having an issue in a joint, or again, a lymph node that's like swollen from something, you can use the cream on that. Then the drops work from an internal standpoint, so they help drain and have a drainage effect internally. So I would use both in many cases. More often I would use just the liquid, or I would use the liquid and the cream. Not many times where I would just use the cream, because I think the liquid is beneficial all around, but sometimes the cream won't be as effective if it's something like deep that you can't get to from basically from the cream.
Okay, perfect. I do have a comment from Rumi looking or inquiring if you see people in your gym looking to get into good shape, because Rumi is a desk zombie. So just,
Nice.
if I can respond to that, we will have your information available on pascoe.ca under the webinars tab, posted a day from now. So you can find Coach Gaétan there and all his contact information. I do have a question from Lisa. Can you recommend supplementation for combating sluggish feeling?
I cannot recommend that in this scenario based on not doing a thorough assessment with you. That's like, I have to qualify and clarify that, because sluggish could mean many things. But to give you an idea, and this is not a recommendation for you specifically, this is a general thing for you to think about. Are you hydrated? Would be the very first thing I would look at. So hydration first, sleep second. If those two things aren't addressed, then supplements don't matter. So people come to me all the time like, what supplement do you recommend for, in this case, being sluggish? And I would ask, how much sleep do you get a night? And they're just confused because they're like, that's not the question I asked. I'm like, but I'm going to the same answer. Or I would say, how much water do you drink in a day? And they're still like, that's not the question. I'm like, if you don't have those things in line, sleep, hydration, and then food quality, then no supplement is going to do anything for you. And I'm a big believer in like many supplements. I recommend supplements, all the time. Only really high quality products I recommend, which is why I'm doing this with Pascoe, because I believe in the quality of their products. Because most products out there are of very, very low quality, and you have to be very conscious of that. So hydration. And when it comes to hydration, it's not just, it's gonna sound funny, but it's not just wet, meaning like it's just not a liquid, it's gonna help you hydrate. Hydration comes from minerals that are in your water. So for example, in my house, I get spring water delivered in big glass bottles to my house, and that's my primary drinking water. I have a filtration system under my sink that's for cooking and washing basically food. And then we have the tap water, which is basically just for washing dishes. I don't drink tap water, and I'm a bit of a crazy person because that water is dead. It's been purified and treated so many times that there's no life left in it, meaning there's no minerals. So hydration isn't just about the liquid, it's about the minerals in that. So look for a very good quality water. If you can't find, or you don't want to spend the money on that, then if you're using your regular water, add a bit of minerals in it, like a really good sea salt. You can just give a little bit of a pinch or a dusting. It shouldn't taste salty or else you added too much. That can help bring minerals back in. So that's like kind of the general answer. And then a couple other supplements to consider. Vitamin D is like the king or queen of all supplements for health, energy, and well-being. I'm a big believer. Again, quality is everything. Magnesium is very big. And that's kind of where I would just start looking at those two, but don't even bother supplement, focus on those other things first.
Okay. One more question is from Miriam. In terms of the minimum exercise per week, how much would you recommend?
Okay. This is my favorite. People love when I say this. That's the wrong question. The right question is, what is the maximum I can do? Meaning, don't look for the minimum. Look for how much you can put in. Does that make sense? Like, look for however much you can make time for in your week is the amount that I would want you to do. And chances are you're gonna start small and you're gonna do another assessment and you'll be like, you know what? You can put a little bit more time in there. You can put a little bit more time in there. And you could start adding to those things, because we're talking movement today mostly. We're not talking training, which is two different things, okay? Like movement practice is walking, those movements that I presented today. It's being active, it's getting out, it's doing all those things. And there should be no limit to that. They have all these like devices now, like Fitbits and stuff like that. And as great as they are, they help people move. The fact that they have like these limits, it's like once you hit that limit, you're like, oh, I don't have to move anymore. Thank God, like I hit my goal for the day. It's like, it should never be that way. It should be, how much can you get in and how much can you do? It's going to make the big difference. Now, just quickly, if you're asking specifically about training, like in the gym, it depends on what we would call your neurotransmitter type, which is kind of like your personality, would determine how often I would have you train. The duration and the intensity of training would change, but to be very average, you can go in the gym and train 4 days a week for an hour, between 45 minutes and an hour, you'd have more than enough.
Okay, wonderful. I don't see any more questions. I'll give everyone a few more
Yeah,
seconds. If there's any
I'll
last.
stay as long as you want to answer questions. I love answering questions.
No, it's so interesting to hear. Um, you know what? I think we have answered everyone's questions today.
Amazing,
Um,
amazing.
if you do have any further questions, please contact seminars@pasco.ca. Again, thank you to everyone who has joined us and participated in the webinar, and a special thank you to you, Coach Gaétan, your wonderful presentation. Again, if you have any questions about the information presented in today's webinar, please contact seminars@pasco.ca. We will be sharing this recording on our website at pasco.ca under the webinars tab, and it will be posted one day from now. And in recognition of the time you have invested attending our webinar, we will be emailing participants a 20% discount and free shipping code for our lymphatic system products, valid until June 30th, 2020. So this includes the lymphatic drainage cream, lymphatic sensitive cream, and lymph drops. Thank you again to everyone who has joined us. We look forward to providing you more educational webinars in the future, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Coach Gaétan, thank you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for coming on. And I hope you guys got something out of it today.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and go for a walk.
Yeah, go for a walk.
Bye now.